everybody, welcome to the 630 assembly video. My name is Peter. We're going to build the Body Ease tricycle today. This will also work for the Every Journey tricycle. So this is the only video for tricycle assembly except for the e-bike tricycle assembly. But this will work for all of the regular tricycles. There are a lot of parts, but the assembly is actually simpler than you might think. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and unpackage the main body of the tricycle. Now in this small box right here, we have assembly manual as well as some basic tools. You may need additional tools to get this tricycle put together. But it comes with a multi-tool, a 4mm, 5mm, and 6mm Allen wrench. I brought some other tools with me here as well because there are some large nuts and bolts that need to be put together. And so we found the simplest way. I'm going to follow a little bit along with our own assembly manual because it's the easiest way to get going. So we're going to go ahead and set the tricycle up, just the main part of the body. Now the fork comes backwards. In this case, we're going to turn it in the clockwise direction, 180 degrees, so it goes forward. And then you can actually, if you need to, you can rest it on this piece of cardboard here. And on the forks. And it will hold itself up. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the handlebars loose. I'm going to cut the zip ties that are holding the handlebars to the frame. I'm going to get these out of our way. There we go. Now at the bottom of the stem, there's a little piece of plastic. It's just packaging, so you can just discard that. You want this iron colored wedge to be visible. That's what's going to go down into the head tube. So we'll discard that packaging. And if you like, you can apply some grease here to the stem. You don't have to. It's not absolutely important. Now 1 second, let's go ahead and also now open up the parts box in which we have pedals. We have an extra chain which is going to be installed in a moment when we attach the rear chassis of the tricycle to it. We have extra hardware. This is all extra. You do not need it. You shouldn't need it. All the hardware that you need is on the bike, on the tricycle already, but this is extra in case something's missing. Things do happen, but don't be alarmed at all this extra hardware. It is extra. It should not be needed. Also, there is a cosmetic cover for the headset. For the upper part of the headset. I'll show you how that works right now. Just go ahead and you're going to slip that tube, slip the headset cover over the stem. Push it up the stem like this. Put the stem back into the headset. We're going to tighten the stem with a 6mm Allen. Tightening down on the stem bolt. At this point, we won't worry about the orientation of the stem, how it's lined up with the front wheel, because we don't have the front wheel in yet, but we'll just kind of get in there out of our way. And then push the headset cover down onto the headset. That's just a cosmetic piece, but it makes the bike look a little nicer. So that's usually the first step that we like to do, just to get those handlebars out of our way. Now, following along with the assembly manual, we're going to go ahead and put on the rear wheels. The rear wheels are the ones that do not have axle nuts on them. They are just hollow hubs, okay? And then these are going to fit onto the part that we call the rear chassis. So I'll show you how that works. This extra large part here, right there, we call the rear chassis. We're going to put the rear wheels onto it. I'm going to take the packaging off so that you can see what I'm doing. There's also a round piece of plastic. Sometimes you'll find these round pieces of plastic on the wheels or axles. This is just packaging as well. I'll show it to you. Just a round piece of plastic, black plastic. Actually, in this case, it was really stuck onto the nut. The nut is in there. So there's a nut on the other side, you can see. So make sure that if you have to pull this off like I just did, there are actually 2 nuts that go on each side of these axles. And this other nut is actually inside, in this case, got stuck inside the packaging. So I'm gonna need to thread that back on. Sometimes people end up throwing away parts when the packaging is so tight. So let me throw this away. I'm gonna work extra hard to pull this packaging straight off so that I don't throw away the nut. There we go. So there's 2 nuts here. There should be another one right here in another piece of packaging. This one, it looks like either I'm missing or I've lost that extra nut, but we do have this bag that has all of the hardware that comes with the Tricycle back in here. So I can just match it to the other side, and then that's the part that I need. I found it in my extra parts bag. So it fits onto the threaded part of the chassis here, just like that. Now, we're actually going to remove these. So remove the nuts for both sides, as well as the washer. So we've got 2 nuts and a washer on this side, 2 nuts and a washer on the other side. This one's going to require a tool. An adjustable wrench is a good idea because some of these are 15 and some are 17. And then you'll notice that one of the axles here has a flat side. That's so that you get the wheels on the correct side, okay? So when you're looking at the rear wheels, you'll see that one has a circular opening in the hub, and the other has a D-shaped opening. So the D-shaped one obviously will go onto the flat axle. The tires are directional, however, that is not important. It's really just for looks. But if you want it pointing forward, that's a great idea. The way to do that is I'll show you that in just a second. The round one goes here on the right. Sorry, that's the left side, because I have it backwards here, like this. And so I put the tread backwards. Again, the direction of the tread is not functionally important, but it is aesthetically significant. And the way you know what the tread is that the tread always goes like this towards the front. Kind of starts in like pointing in that direction. So I put those on the first time. I had the chassis facing the wrong direction, so I put them on backwards, but now they're on forwards. I'll take the rest of the packaging off here. And then we're going to replace the washer and the 2 nuts on each side, on each axle. So here we go, here comes the washer. The first nut will be the one that does not have the locking substance, the locking material on the inside. The other one is more of a lock nut. That will go on the outside. Go ahead and tighten that one down. It should be a 17 millimeter. I'm just going to use an adjustable wrench. A crescent wrench. There we go. Nice and secure, but the wheel spins freely. On the other side, washer, non-locking nut, all the way down, and then lock nut. The lock nut will stop going on about halfway because it has the locking material in it. It may be nylon, I'm not sure. And then tighten it down, nice and secure. Against the other nut. Make sure that the wheel spins nice and freely. It does. And then following along with the assembly manual. Now I'm going to attach the rear fenders. To make my life easy, I'm using a ratcheting 10mm wrench. You'll also need a Phillips once we get going. Actually, I'm going to need one right now because they have the nylock slightly engaged. So I'm going to remove all 6 of these. There's 3 on the right and 3 on the left. And these will be used to attach the rear fenders. From this side, my screwdriver and my 10mm. Let's get those loosened. Remove 3 from the left, 3 from the right. And then we're going to orient this upward like this. And then we'll reattach the screws and nuts. I would just kind of get these attached loosely at first so that you can adjust them later. Again, these are nylock locking nuts, so you can only put them on about halfway with your fingers before they stop, and then you'll have to use a tool to tighten further. But there's a lot of adjustment you can do with these fenders later on to get them just how they need to be, so they don't rub against the tire, and so that they are positioned properly. So I'm putting a screw in from the back side, then I'm putting in the fender strut onto it. Oops. Pretty easy. I'm going to tighten one of these down just to keep it in place, but I'm going to leave the other ones loose because I think I'm going to need to readjust it once I really get the tricycle assembled. Also, it may need to be a little higher so it doesn't touch the tire. Here I am, I'm using a ratcheting 10mm to make my life easier, but you can use any 10mm or even a small crescent wrench. Still a little close to the tire, but we can pull that up at any time. Tighten further. There we go. And then we'll do the same thing for the other one. These two wheels move independently of each other so that you can take corners. And I'm setting this up on the higher side of the slots here to keep a nice distance away from the tire. There we go. Let's see. I need a little bit of adjustment later on, but let's move on. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and attach the rear chassis to the main frame of the tricycle. So the next step is to remove carriage bolts. And so we need to remove the nuts from the carriage bolts. The carriage bolt has a little square part on it that keeps it held in the frame, so you can use that to hold it. That's how it's held when you're loosening or tightening the nut. We'll do all four. I'm going to push this one up so I get that square inside the frame so that it will hold it nicely. Undo the nut. Take it out. Same thing here. And then we will go ahead and fit the two tabs of the chassis. These brackets here, I'm going to slide into just on the outside of the frame of the tricycle. And then we will put the carriage bolt in from the inside, match the square up of the bolt with the square on the frame, and pass that into through the bracket on the rear chassis. There we go. Once we get the first one, the next three are easy. So we'll continue to put the carriage bolts in to attach the rear chassis to the frame of the tricycle. Carriage bolt goes in from the inside and then through the brackets on the rear chassis, then the washer and lock nut. Go ahead and get all four installed before you do any tightening. It's just a general good practice anytime you're assembling anything. Get all the hardware positioned first. Now we'll go ahead and tighten it on down. If you have a ratcheting socket here, you'll be doing it really quickly. But actually, we don't want to tighten all the way down, just a little bit, because we're still going to have to do an adjustment. We're going to move the rear chassis all the way forward in the slots so that these two sprockets here are close to each other. Because now we need to attach them with a chain. The chain comes in its own little pouch here, and it has a master link so that it can be attached at home without any special tools. So we'll take the chain out. It's a greasy little guy. And then careful, there's 3 extra parts for the master link. Now I'm going to wrap the chain around the 2 sprockets here. And remember, we move this rear chassis as close as we can, as forward as we can, so that the chain can be close enough to be attached with the master link. Push the master link through the 2 ends of the chain, Place the other plate on the other side and then secure it. With the little lock piece. You can just slide over the 2 pins and you can push it on. Usually it's good to use a flathead screwdriver. That's what I will use to push that on. Just slide it on there. So the chain makes a complete loop. Now what we can do is we can set the chain tension by sliding the chassis back. Slide it back and it will tighten that chain tension. It should be able to come up and down a little bit. I would say give it a deflection of maybe a 1/4 inch up and a 1/4 inch down would be a good adjustment. And then go ahead and tighten those carriage nuts, the nuts for the carriage bolts, all the way down on both sides. I'm holding the distance with one hand and tightening with the other hand. I do have a socket. I don't know why I'm not, a ratcheting socket. I don't know why I'm not using it. Maybe just to show you guys it can be done with a regular old crescent wrench. There we go. That's a nice tension, not too tight, also not too loose. Okay, great. Now, the front and the rear part are attached to each other. I'm going to cut this bit of packaging off here that I missed earlier. The seat post was in there, but that's all right. Take this packaging off. All right, how's everybody feeling now? Doesn't it feel good? We're almost done. It's really not that difficult of a process. It's pretty straightforward. You should believe in yourself, not be intimidated. Don't let a tricycle beat you. All right, now according to these instructions, by the way, I made these instructions, so give me all the feedback you want. I'm a big boy, I can take it. If you hate them, please let me know why so I can make them better for the next person. We're going to install the front wheel. The front wheel is going to have to go past these brakes. As you'll notice, these brakes are pretty close together, so the front wheel is not going to make it past them. You don't have to use any tools, however, to make these brakes open up wide. I'll show you how to do it. Let's get rid of this packaging here before I show you this little magic trick. Okay, see, here they are nice and close to each other. I'm going to grab this silver part, it's called a noodle, and then the little bracket that the noodle goes into, I'm going to pull it apart. Those brakes are going to open up like that. No tools. It takes about 1 second. Don't go removing your brakes like some people do. It's a bad idea. So there it is, back together again, and then take it apart, and it's open for the front wheel. Now, let's put the front wheel in. Again, you can look at the direction of the tire. Oh, right here at the bottom of the fork, there's a plastic piece. Take that out. It's trash. It's actually just to protect the fork from going through the box, so you can discard that. I made it. Some people get paid to throw things into holes or other receptacles, and when you're very good at it, you can get paid very well. We're going to tighten these axle nuts up, 15 millimeters, 15 millimeter wrench. I'm using my crescent wrench again. I don't know why. It just feels right now to do it that way. I'm loosening this one up a little bit because I have to get this little washer up around. It's called a safety washer, but it hooks into the bottom, the drop out of the fork. I'm not really sure how necessary that sort of little device is, but it's there, so we'll do it. Nice and tight. Now I noticed that when I did this, and I was talking to you, I wasn't paying attention to the wheel. It's off center here. That'll make it difficult for me to adjust the brakes later on or have the brakes be right. I need the wheel to be nicely centered in the fork, so I'm going to loosen the one of the axle nuts a little bit. Get that fork centered. I'm going to get the wheel centered. I'm going to, actually in this case, have to loosen both axle nuts. Make sure that the wheel is nicely centered in the fork, and then tighten them back down again. Tighten the axle nuts back down again. Easy peasy. You could do this in a blizzard if you had to, and then ride your way to safety with all of your supplies in the basket in the back. And then you can reattach the brakes together. In this case, the little spring came back out of its little hook. Simply put it back. It popped out of both sides. No big deal. I just popped it back in. And now I'm going to use a 6mm Allen wrench, and I'm going to tilt the handlebars up. They're tilted down for packaging, to keep the package size down, but you can just lift them up. They can be adjusted up or down, and you can adjust them to your own comfort. Once you start riding the tricycle, you can decide which way is best for you. Here's the reflector for you already. You may need to tighten it a little bit. And soon you'll be cruising on your way. Here, let's do the pedals. I want to tell you about the pedals. There's a right pedal and there's a left pedal. And there's a reason for that. It's very important that you pay attention to which is right and which is left. They're labeled. The right pedal has an R on it, the left pedal has a left on it, has an L on it. The right pedal has regular thread, so you turn it in clockwise, the regular way to install it. The left pedal has left hand or a reverse thread. So you actually turn it counterclockwise to install it. The left pedal is backwards. So we'll install the right pedal first. I'm going to go ahead and turn it clockwise. Just with my fingers at first, and as far as I can go, I'll turn the pedal axle. And then once it starts to get a little tight, I'm going to use a 15mm wrench to tighten it all the way down. Here's a thin 15 right here. Snug it right down. Nice and snug. The left pedal is reverse threaded, so we're going to turn it counterclockwise to install. Another way to remember is that both pedals will be rotated forward towards the front of the bike to install them. This is so that the pedal won't unwind itself when you're pedaling. It's a strange mystery of physics that almost no one understands, including myself, because the oscillation that occurs is very counterintuitive to what you would think would make it unwind. What it is caused, apparently it's caused by an oscillation, not by the rotation. I don't know. It's not worth looking into. There's better things to do with your time. That's not true. It's all equally important. Or unimportant. I can't tell which. All right, now, let's do the seat post. Please, for the love of all things that are good, don't drop your seat post down into the, down all the way into the bike. It's very hard to get out sometimes. I've always gotten them out, but sometimes I've heard of people who haven't been able to. You know, when there's a will, there's a way, but, you know, sometimes people can't get it back out. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the seat onto the seat post first. That way it will be impossible for us to lose the seat post down into the seat tube. So here we are. We're going to grab a 14mm wrench. Maybe a 13, I don't know. Sometimes they're 14, sometimes they're 13. Let's find out which this one is, I forgot. So instead of sticking the seat post in here without the seat on it, in which case you could lose this down in the frame and lose it, we're going to go ahead and attach the seat to the seat post first. When you do, there's a V-shaped tab here at the top of the seat assembly. Make sure that the seat post goes all the way to that tab where it stops it. Otherwise you won't get a good positive clamp on it. Okay, here I am. It does appear to be 14. Sometimes it's a 13. And we're going to tighten these up evenly. If you tighten one side all the way, the other side will pop off and get stripped because it doesn't have enough threads engaged. Also, by the way these are designed, they always can take a fair amount of force to really get that seat clamped onto the seat post. So give it a lot. We can adjust the angle later. Right now we're just kind of putting it on there as a backstop, as a safety, so that you guys don't lose the seat post out into the seat tube, which happens all too often. In a bike shop, also for other considerations, you may want to put grease on the seat post. You don't have to, but you can. That will prevent the metal from seizing if you leave your tricycle out in the rain. Okay, now this is a quick release system here. Just so with the lever open, we're going to go ahead and tighten the nut down a little bit. I'm going to set the seat height to the height that I like it, and then I'm going to try and bring the lever forward. I'm bringing it forward along the body of the seat post clamp. That's a nice solid feeling. It's holding it, but not. Oh yeah, that is nice and secure. The seat post isn't turning. Actually, the seat is turning. The seat needs more tightening up here. When you tighten the seat post clamp, this is really important. It has to come along forward and be clamped along the body of the seat post clamp. Don't do it like this, up, so it closes upward or backward, for two reasons. One, it won't clamp the seat post properly. Two, in order to make it work, you're going to make it so tight that you're going to push upward, and you can actually break the bolt. The lever is long enough that you can actually apply enough torque and break that bolt there. So always clamp forward so it's along the body of the seat post clamp. I'm going to stick that back in there again. I'm going to tighten the nut just a little bit more and then clamp that down. Oh, it needs to be a little bit tighter. And clamp the nut a little, tighten the nut a little bit more, clamp down. Oh, that's a nice, good, positive feeling. We can adjust the seat level, the seat angle. So I'm going to just loosen both sides a little bit, and then depends on how loose you are, how much you got to apply force to level the seat out. But you can get this the level that you want. That's about right. Kind of level with the ground. Hold it down, and then, oh yes, I have a ratchet on this. I'm gonna go ahead and ratchet on that puppy. But what surprises a lot of people is how tight you have to get these clamps. So just keep going and going and going. And to finish off, I always do it on the side in which I push down. It's just easier to push down, get a lot of power on that, so that everything's secure and it doesn't turn. The seat is tilted to the right a little bit. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna move it down and then reclamp it. Okay, cool. So let's do the front fender now. It's right here, it has a little bit of plastic on it. I'll rip that off and discard. We have already installed here a long bolt, 2 washers and a nut. Both of the washers go on the back side. You can leave the nut in there actually, the long bolt in there. And then you're going to slide the thicker of the 2 washers. It has a little concavity in it. Put that concavity up against the fork. And then goes the, and then goes the tab of the fender next. And then the thin washer. And then the lock nut. The lock nut, like I said, is a lock nut. So after it goes on about halfway, it's going to stop. It's meant to do that. You're gonna have to use a tool in order to continue to tighten it. It's gonna be a 10 millimeter and a Phillips. Ratcheting. So nice and fast. If you don't have that, it will take a little longer. Some do, some don't. Okay. Oh. Tighten the struts down with the little Allen bolt there, or a screw. And that puppy is a 5 millimeter. Tighten it down. There we go. Last step is the basket. All right, guys, there you go. We're all done. I hope that you agree that it wasn't as difficult as it looks. I know it's a lot of bike, but it goes together pretty quickly, actually, even for first timers. Give us your feedback Also, if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out and give us a call at 310-982-2877, or you can email us at theteam@sixthreezero.com. And go out there, get out there and enjoy the day.